So I don't know if you saw, well, you saw it because you brought it up, but TD has been smacked with $3 billion in fines. What happened there? I didn't see this. You were telling me about it.
Yeah, this is so they entered the U.S. market. I don't know the date that they entered the U.S. market for specifically, and this is mortgages, and this is based on AML. So, the big blue bank here in Canada got slapped with a little fine for not following compliance to do with anti-money laundering. And TD in the U.S. got smacked with a much, much bigger fine, $3 billion in fines, with, what is it, 9 billion? Let me pull this up. 3 billion in fines and asset caps. As a result, they're selling off 9 billion worth of mortgage assets. And I think
in the US?
In the US, yeah.
Okay.
And it got me thinking about Canadian banks. So in the US, their banks aren't really like centralized so much as ours are here. There's a lot of independent, a lot of credit unions. So I think the Canadian banks are specifically tailored to have success in the United States based on our model of a lot of branches and big banks. So I think that TD figured that out long before I figured it out and went down and had a big splash. But I guess they had issues with the anti-money laundering compliance, specifically around drug cartels and stuff like that. So they're
drug cartels, right? Like,
oh, it's scary stuff. There's a Netflix documentary on drug cartels, and I think specifically around HSBC and money laundering there, and like literally threatening people with pictures of their children, and like that was their signature to get the mortgage approved. So that's scary stuff. I don't know if this is as scary as that. I think we'll find out more. But what the relevance to the Canadian market is, and we know this already. Sean and I have done all kinds of anti-money laundering compliance courses already. I think it's going to be stricter. I think there's going to be more regulation around it. I think that when you apply for a mortgage, be prepared to have a rectal scan and
a rectal scan. A retina scan.
And be prepared to show your elementary school records and take a blood test. Getting a mortgage is going to be harder in terms of verifying who you are in the future. So that's
well, I think if somebody were to go back 20 years and just fast forward into the future of what kind of regulations and documents are necessary now to get a mortgage, there's a ton of work to do, even for like, some of our alternative lenders who maybe don't need as much documents. There's still a ton of stuff. I feel bad sometimes having to go back and ask for more stuff, but even just like the verification of who somebody is, we could kind of get by with, the lawyer's going to do that. Now we have to do, a politically exposed person form. We have to do a know your client form. We have to indicate how we verified who it is. And if they don't pass those thresholds, then they're doing a facial scan and trying to figure out, okay, is this the right person? Can we verify that using the face and the ID? So, but it does seem that we get like, isn't there more and more fines for this sort of stuff? Like, I feel like this is the third time I've heard of like TD being fined. So I think when I saw the headline, I'm like, oh yeah, that already happened. But you're saying this is another.
Yeah, that's true. There have been some shenanigans, or at least like a crackdown. When we say non-compliant for anti-money laundering activities, there's a set of rules that they have to follow. It doesn't mean that something crooked went down. It just means that they weren't doing their compliance to the level that they need to, right? So I don't know the details on this one, but certainly I think with RBC in Canada, it was a much smaller fine, and it could just be a warning to say, hey, you really have to do this. You really have to get these documents signed. You really have to provide more proof of identification. Not that money laundering happened, but the compliance didn't happen. So it's good to point that out, to say I'm not worried about the fundamentals of our banking and mortgage systems, but it's going to be more strict going forward. So consumers should be prepared for that. It's no longer, 40 years ago, you walk into the bank and they know you and they give you the loan. It's going to be a lot more paperwork than that.
And well, why would that benefit, or why is this good for Canadians if there's going to be more compliance? Why is that good and why is that bad? I have an answer.
I don't like it at all. I like the old version of it, but now that we don't walk into banks and stuff, and our immigration has, really expanded, and not that the immigration is the problem, but when you have bigger population, bigger cities, there's more autonomy in there. There's a little less familiarity with people, so you're not walking into your bank branch really for anything. So there's a lot that can sort of pass off that couldn't before.
I'm gonna jump on my soapbox a little bit here. Not that we're on a soapbox, but this is so if there is fraud, that costs all Canadians money, in the way of people borrowing money that they should be able to borrow, or not being who they say they're going to be. That expands the real estate, that increases prices in the real estate market, because all of a sudden there's more people that are able to purchase those homes, and then more people purchasing means that the prices go up. If we have more stringent laws on people, on what they can borrow, who they are, what their income actually is, that levels the playing field for all Canadians, and it makes it less expensive to purchase. If there's then less fraud, there's less cost of that theoretically would increase the margins of what a bank could make on a mortgage, and would then lower the amount, could lower your rate. Jumping a little bit there, but I still think that fraud is bad. It just costs people too much money overall.
For sure it does. And I haven't heard about it so much in the Toronto market as I did pre-pandemic, of international buyers coming in on offer night and throwing down cash. Not that it's literal cash, but they're closing without mortgages. So that's a potential, and that we can't do anything about that. And maybe that's where the focus really should be, is cash purchases for real estate. I don't want to say that everybody has to have a mortgage, but what hoops do you have to jump through if you're paying for a property outright? So maybe
if you're transferring it in cash, I mean, but we have a foreign buyers ban that's been expanded. It's been extended to January 1st, 2027. So we're not allowing those kind of foreign buyers to come in.
There were so many loopholes in that I feel. Another recent headline is something like 50,000 international students didn't show up for class. Now that this is being looked at, because I think that the university tuitions and stuff and our attracting international students was a vehicle for some of this international purchasing of Canadian property, because they were exempt. If you were in school for 2 years, but nobody was tracking attendance. So if you're registered for school for 2 years, you could purchase a property in Canada. That money, with our gifted down payment structure, $400K comes from overseas. It's all checked and cleared out. Everybody did the right thing. It's just the policy was the way that it was. So
saying that was, I don't know how, I don't think that that was because we had like taxes on like what was the acronym again? Non-speculator, the speculation tax or whatever.
Right.
And I think it was 15%. It went up to 25%. I don't remember the exact numbers.
I've
but it was
never done a mortgage where the client had to pay that. So like I've never done a mortgage where they fit that criteria.
I've talked to people where they would fit that criteria, but then when I explain like these are all the costs involved, they're like, oh, okay, maybe I won't do it. They don't want to pay the tax. So, but if people are purchasing things, I mean, what we want to do is eliminate Canada's housing economy as a way for people to launder money through it. So if
Correct.
we're cutting down on, we're making our compliance tougher, we're making the fraud prevention tougher, then that's going to be a way for less people to be able to launder money through the Canadian system, because there are just so many different hoops to jump through.